Did you know there is a real case where the excuse the pigs ate him wasn't a joke, but an actual legal defense in court? In early 2014, a sheriff's department in a small town in Oregon began searching a remote 20-acre farm hidden deep inside a forest. A local man had recently gone missing, and this farm was one of the very few places investigators knew he had been staying. Not long into the search, one of the deputies was walking around the outside of a barn when he noticed something unusual on the ground. At first, he couldn't tell what it was, but as he moved closer, it became horrifyingly clear. That discovery would soon make national headlines and expose something far more disturbing that had been happening for years in what many believed was a quiet, peaceful town. The farm belonged to a woman named Susan Monica. By most standards, Susan's life had once been stable and successful. She had a small but close group of friends, worked as an engineer, and lived in San Francisco, one of the most vibrant cities in the world. But Susan wasn't happy. Life in the city wasn't a dream she had chosen. It was simply where circumstances had taken her. Deep down, she preferred silence, isolation, and being alone, things that were nearly impossible to find in a city like San Francisco. Night after night, she would sit in her apartment imagining a different life, a life off the grid, on a farm, growing her own food, far away from people. In 1991, when Susan was 43 years old, she made that dream a reality. She purchased a 20-acre property deep in the forest near a small town in Oregon. The land had no house, no barn, no electricity, no running water, and no septic system. It was nothing but untouched wilderness. To Susan, it was perfect. She was an engineer by trade, physically strong, and not afraid of hard manual labor. Over the next several months, she built everything herself: a small shack to live in, a large barn, and enclosures for livestock. But once the farm was finished, Susan realized that building it hadn't been the hard part. Maintaining it was. The daily labor, feeding animals, repairs, and constant work were exhausting. And although Susan valued her solitude, she eventually accepted that she couldn't manage the farm alone. She began putting up help-wanted flyers around town. People started arriving, mostly individuals who struggled to find work elsewhere. Transient workers, people with criminal records, people without strong ties to anyone. Susan didn't care about their pasts. She had only two rules: work hard and don't disturb the peace. Over the next 20 years, dozens of workers passed through her farm. Some stayed briefly, some stayed longer. Eventually, they all left, and Susan never heard from them again, until January 1st, 2014. That morning, Susan, now 66 years old, was standing outside her shack when she saw a car slowly making its way up the dirt road toward her property. This was highly unusual. Very few people ever visited her. The car stopped, and 3 young adults stepped out, 2 men and a woman. They told Susan they were looking for their father, Robert Haney. He had told them he was working on her farm, living in a camper on the property. Robert usually stayed in touch with his children, but months had passed without a word. With no phone and no permanent address, they had no way to reach him. Susan immediately recognized the name. She told them she had hired Robert the previous spring. At first, he had been quiet, hard-working, and kept to himself. But several months later, his behavior changed. He began drinking heavily, stopped working consistently, and spent long periods talking about revenge. Susan later learned that one of Robert's children had been assaulted, and he felt overwhelming guilt for not being there to protect them. Eventually, Robert approached Susan, handed her an envelope filled with cash, asked her to look after his dog, and then left in a white car, driven by someone she didn't know. That was the last time she saw him. Susan took the children to Robert's camper. Inside, everything was still there: clothes, tools, personal belongings. Most alarming of all was his tool belt. Robert was a traveling handyman. Leaving it behind made no sense. The children reported him missing. Investigators struggled to find leads until they traced Robert's government assistance card. It had been used at a store, not by Robert, but by Susan. This led police back to the farm. During the search, deputies made a shocking discovery: a human leg lying out in the open. Susan was taken in for questioning. When asked if anyone had died on her property, she told investigators a story that left them stunned. She claimed she had discovered Robert inside the pig enclosure, still alive, while the pigs were actively attacking him. She said she tried to pull them away but failed. Believing he was beyond saving, she retrieved a shotgun and shot him out of mercy. Days later, she collected what remained and disposed of it. Then she revealed something even more disturbing. She admitted that another worker, Stephen Delicino, had died on the property 2 years earlier under similar circumstances after an argument. Once again, she claimed the pigs were responsible. In both cases, Susan said she never contacted authorities because she feared The pigs would be euthanized, and that no one would buy their meat. The case went to trial. Susan's defense argued these deaths were tragic accidents, that animals were responsible, that Susan acted out of fear and compassion. The jury didn't believe her. On April 21, 2015, Susan Monaco was convicted of 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of abuse of a corpse. She was sentenced to a minimum of 50 years in prison. While in custody, Susan claimed there were more bodies buried on the property. Extensive searches found nothing. So what do you think? A horrifying series of accidents, or a carefully concealed crime? This was the story for today. If you want shorter versions, updates, or similar real cases, make sure to follow the channel. Until next time.